Hi, this is Neima Novetsky from al-atara.org. Today, I'd like to study with you Yaakov's parting words to Shimon and Levi. Sefer Breshit closes with Yaakov's last will and testament to his sons. The tone of most of Yaakov's speech is positive, as he blesses his children with rich land, luscious vines, and victory in battle. When addressing Shimon and Levi, however, Yaakov speaks of violent tempers and murder. He says that he wishes to have no part in their counsel, and he even curses their wrath. Why do Yaakov's final words to Shimon and Levi appear so harsh? To which events in the lives of the two brothers is he alluding? As Yaakov's speech is poetic, not all of the terms he uses are easily defined, leaving the intent and meaning of many of Yaakov's words ambiguous. As such, almost every verse raises questions. Yaakov says of the brothers, Klei Hamas mecherotehem. The words Klei Hamas might easily be translated as weapons of violence, with the word Hamas carrying a negative connotation of unjust brutality. What, though, does mecherotehem mean? Is it related to the word limkor, meaning to sell, lahakir, to recognize, or does it stem from a different root? Either way, how does it affect the meaning of the metaphor? Yaakov continues, Bisodam al tavo nafshi, bikahalam al techad kvodi. Into their secrets or counsel, my soul shall not come. In their assembly, my glory shall not be united. To what counsel and assembly is Yaakov referring? Are these two distinct things, or is Yaakov simply making use of poetic parallelism and expressing the same idea twice in different words? Yaakov's next words appear to provide an explanation as to why he wants no part in the brothers' counsel. He says, Ki ba'apam hargu ish, uvirtzonam ikaru shor. For in their anger they killed men, in their will they hamstrung cattle. Is Yaakov referring to a specific incident in which the brothers killed, or to a general tendency towards murder? What does he mean by saying that Shimon and Levi hamstrung oxen? Why is that worthy of mention? Or might the word shor have some secondary connotation which makes the act more significant? The last verse of Yaakov's testament, where Yaakov curses his sons in their wrath, avur apam ki'az, and declares that he will separate and disperse them, raises even further questions. How is such a curse and punishment compatible with the narrator's later statement in verse 28, Vayivarechotam, ish asher kivirchato berachotam? This verse suggests that each of the brothers were blessed, not cursed. Moreover, does Yaakov's curses and declaration of dispersal express his personal desires, or are they a prophetic vision of the future and an expression of Hashem's will? Finally, one last set of questions relates to Yaakov's blessings as a whole. Yaakov prefaces his speech by telling his sons that he will speak of events that will befall them ba'acharit hayamim, literally in the end of days. Does this refer to experiences during Yaakov's sons' own lives? To events which will occur to their descendants upon their return to the land of Israel? Or to incidents which will transpire in Messianic times? As such, is Yaakov addressing his sons as individuals or as progenitors of future tribes? The answers to these questions will obviously impact how one understands each of Yaakov's blessings, including his words to Shimon and Levi. In trying to uncover the meaning of Yaakov's address to Shimon and Levi, commentators mine the various episodes throughout Tanakh in which the two tribes play a part, looking for which stories best fit Yaakov's words. The commentators' choices lead to quite different readings of our verses, but, as we will see shortly, the greatest difference between the approaches relates not to which episodes provide the backdrop to our text, but rather to the tone which they attribute to Yaakov's speech. A first approach maintains that Yaakov is rebuking Shimon and Levi for their role in the slaughter of Shechem. This is the most prevalent reading of the story. It is adopted by Ibn Ezra, a 12th century commentator, and many others, probably because the story of Shechem is the only episode in Torah in which the two brothers are explicitly mentioned as acting together, and in which Yaakov censures them for their actions. According to this reading, Yaakov's anger at the immorality of the massacre did not dissipate over the years and receives its fullest expression on his deathbed. Ebenezer presents Yaakov as telling the brothers that their attack on the city was unjust because they killed bimcherotehem, understood to mean in their dwelling, as in the phrase mechorotayach umodotayach, your dwelling and birthplace. Right after the Shechemites had agreed to dwell together in peace, Shimon and Levi deceitfully turned on them and massacred them, an act of Hamas, or wickedness. Yaakov emphasizes that he had played no role in this deceit, and that he had not been part of either the brothers' secret scheme or its execution. Bisodam al tavo nafshi. It was only Shimon and Levi, in their anger, who murdered the people of the city and destroyed its shore, or its wall. Yaakov thus chastises the brothers, but stops short of actually cursing them, cursing only their anger, or, as Ebenezer suggests, praying that their anger be diminished. Ebenezer posits that if the word bracha connotes abundance, then its opposite, a curse, must be a lessening of something. If so, the words avor apam mean, may their wrath decrease. Yaakov ends by declaring that the brothers will be separated and dispersed among Israel, a preventative measure to ensure that their anger will be less likely to cause damage. On the whole, then, this approach makes sense of each line of Yaakov's address and would seem to be a fairly good reading. Yet, it hinges on one assumption, that the brothers' slaughter of Shechem was problematic and worthy of Yaakov's rebuke. This is an assumption which is not shared by all commentators. Those who view the brothers' role in Shechem as fundamentally justified assume that Yaakov's anger at the time of the deed related not to the immorality of the brothers' actions, but only their lack of prudence in not thinking about the potential ramifications of their act. As such, these commentators look for an alternative crime of Shimon and Levi, which would be worthy of Yaakov's censure, and they find it in the brothers' attempt to kill and sell Yosef. Rabbi Chaim Ibn Attar, an 18th century commentator and author of the Or HaChaim, asserts, Achen pshat hakatuvu ki kol hakatuv yidaber b'maaseh Yosef. According to this approach, all of Yaakov's words center around the story of Yosef. Thus, Yaakov's statement, Klei Hamas mecherotehem, is understood to derive from the verb limkor and refers to the sale, which was unjust, an act of Hamas. Yaakov continues to rebuke the brothers for their attempted murder, saying, Ki ba'apam hargu ish, presenting the crime as if it were executed and not only attempted. The next phrase, uvirtzonam ikaru shor, is parallel in meaning with the word shor understood as referring to Yosef, since he is given this very title in Moshe's blessing, Bachor Sharo Hadar Lo. Yaakov then stresses that he himself played no role in Shimon and Levi's secret hatred and plot, declaring, Bisodam al tavo nafshi. At first glance, this protestation seems superfluous, for after all, the brothers were well aware of Yaakov's lack of involvement. It is possible, though, that these words are aimed more at Yosef than at Shimon and Levi, for Yosef might have always wondered whether, when Yaakov had sent him to check on his brothers so many years before, had he done so knowing what would happen? This approach raises several questions, not least of which is the fact that nowhere in the text does it state that it was Shimon and Levi who were the instigators who suggested, V'ata lachu v'nahargehu, let us kill Yosef. These sources are likely following the Tanchuma, which arrives at Shimon and Levi's role through a process of elimination. Since Reuven and Yehuda acted to prevent Yosef from being killed, it's unlikely that they were the ones to initially suggest the murder. This leaves the next two oldest brothers, Shimon and Levi, as the most likely candidates. However, even if one agrees that Shimon and Levi did play the lead role, what evidence is there that Yaakov would have been aware of this, or even that he knew of the sale and attempted murder at all? After all, once the family was reunited, in whose interest would it have been to reveal such a thing? Though nowhere in Sefer Breshit do we read of anyone spilling the secret to Yaakov, there is one verse which might suggest that he nonetheless found out, or perhaps simply guessed. After his death, the brothers make a point of telling Yosef that their father had said to tell him, Sana pesha achacha v'chatatam, ki ra'a gmalucha. Forgive your brothers for their sin, for they did evil to you. While it is possible that the brothers are simply telling a white lie, this verse could easily indicate that Yaakov was indeed aware of the brothers' sin against Yosef. With this, we move to a third and final approach, one which is taken by only a minority of commentators, and it is quite novel in its reading. In contrast to our natural reading of the verses, both Rav Yosef Kimchi, a 12th century Provençal commentator, and Rav Yehuda HaChassid, a younger German contemporary, assert that Yaakov's words do not comprise a condemnation of Shimon and Levi at all, but are rather praise. Like Ibn Ezra, Rav Yosef Kimchi understands Yaakov's words to be speaking of the slaughter in Shechem, but he suggests that Yaakov is blessing the brothers for their role rather than criticizing them. Rav Yosef Kimchi subtly avoids the negative connotation of the phrase Klei Hamas Mecherotehem by suggesting that the word Hamas, violence, does not qualify the noun Mecherotehem, understood to refer to Shimon and Levi's weapons, but rather that it describes the actions of Shechem. Thus, Yaakov is not condemning the brothers' weapons as being tools of violence, but rather praising Shimon and Levi for taking them to fight against the Hamas, the wickedness of Shechem. With another deft maneuver, Rav Yosef Kimchi similarly reverses the apparent meaning of the phrase Avor apam ki'az, achalkem bi Yaakov. Cursed is their wrath, may they be separated in Israel, suggesting that these words are a blessing rather than a curse. Anger, when used correctly, can be a positive trait, and so Yaakov blesses the brothers that their anger should be diminished, in the sense that it should be shared and spread throughout Israel. The one line which Rav Yosef Kimchi does not adequately explain how it can fit his positive twist of the blessing is the words Bisodam al tavo nafshi. This phrase is difficult, for if Yaakov is proud of his sons, why would he say that he wants no part in their counsel? Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid similarly flips the seemingly negative tone of Yaakov's words into a positive one. According to him, Yaakov is not speaking of any specific event, but rather about the brothers' fiery temperament and nature. He praises the brothers' anger and willingness to kill, recognizing it as a necessary trait for the survival of the nation, for it will ensure that there will always be someone to fight Israel's battles. Yaakov praises Shimon and Levi's weapons of violence, suggesting that they instill fear in Israel's enemies, leading these enemies to declare, Bisodam al tavo nafshi. We want no part in the counsel of Shimon and Levi. We want no part in any war in which they are to be participants. Yaakov points out how quick the brothers are to kill in their rage. Ki va'apam hargu ish. They do not even take booty, but instead kill even the livestock, uvirtsonam ikru shor, to completely destroy their enemies. This attitude further frightens surrounding nations who cry out, Cursed is their wrath, for it is great. Yaakov's final words, Achalkem bi Yaakov, I will disperse them among Israel, refer to the fact that all the other tribes will desire to hire Shimon and Levi to fight for them. They will be divided among Israel as they spread out to assist each tribe in their battles. Thus, both Rav Yosef Kimchi and Rav Yehuda HaChassid managed to turn what initially looks like a rebuke into a blessing, with a few creative readings and changes in speaker. Nonetheless, the readings are clearly not the smoothest, making us wonder what motivates them. Rav Yosef Kimchi's motives are explicit. He maintains that if the narrator shares that Yaakov blessed each son, then somehow Yaakov's words to Shimon and Levi, and Reuven as well, must also contain a blessing. Rav Yehuda HaChassid's motives, in contrast, are not textual, as he has no problem reading Yaakov's words to Reuven as rebuke. It seems that he simply truly believes that the fiery temperament attributed to Shimon and Levi is worthy of praise. Rav Yehuda HaChassid, living in 12th century Germany, after the Crusaders had decimated full towns, sees a need for Jews who can stand up to and kill their enemies. This was a pervasive attitude throughout Germany of his day. Perhaps, if there were a few more Shimon and Levis in their time, such widespread destruction would not have occurred. In summary, we have seen three very different understandings of Yaakov's words. Two, which view Yaakov as rebuking his son's violent anger, which was used either to slaughter Shem or to sell Yosef. And one, which views Yaakov as praising this very same characteristic. The spectrum of opinions teaches the very important lesson that most traits are not inherently good or inherently bad. It depends on what you do with them. Anger can be destructive and can kill, but it can also be a positive force that spurs people into action that defends and saves lives. It all depends on how you channel it. For more topics related to Parshat Vayechi, please visit al-attorah.org.